me the next shiny new thing. Bring me the next.
The Pickleball CHIX are obsessed with America's fastest growing sport, pickleball. Get ready for on and off the court hot topics. Lots of laughs, cocktails, and champagne with your hosts, Annie and Rebecca.
I'm Rebecca.
I'm Annie.
And we're the Pickleball Chicks!
Hey, guess what?
What?
1 year anniversary for the Pickleball Chicks.
You know what? And we're awesome.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Ooh.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And speaking of, we want to give a shout out to Ron, our super fabulous mixologist. And we've got our drinks all ready. And got to tell you what it is. The Empress. We are going to start out with this cool Empress Indigo Gin. Now, I don't know if you know this, but it's got butterfly pea flower in it. And Annie, I knew you would love this one because it makes your skin glow. It makes high blood pressure, which neither of us have, go lower. Collagen.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
Collagen. It makes collagen. Reduces stress and anxiety.
Ooh.
Boosts immunity.
Okay.
Oh my God. What else does it do? I mean, what else do we need?
Well, I think you said it boosts your metabolism.
Oh my God, yes. It's everything every girl wants. So my God.
Drink up, Buttercup.
Ron was thinking of us today. Okay.
Okay.
We put all it together and Ron has a video, so you'll see him doing his thing. Out that sunrise. Sunset. Could be really either.
So pretty. I love it.
So cheers to 1 year with my good
Cheers.
friend. I hope we're making a difference in the pickleball community, in the world of pickleball.
I sure hope so as well. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
So word of the day, speaking of the pickleball world and community.
Well, it is 3 letters. We're changing it up today.
I love it.
MLP. And our drink of the day, our word of the day, everybody get their drinks. If you don't make one of ours, make one that you love.
Yes.
And drink whenever you hear the word of the day. And now on to our spectacular guest, Dr. C from MLP Chiropractic team, medical team for our pickleball pros.
Dr. C, the pickleball doc.
Yes.
Okay.
Welcome to our guest, Cynthia. What's her last name?
Boccara.
Boccara.
Yeah, read it. Very nicely done. Thank you. Glad to be here.
She just finished up her MLP stint down in Atlanta, keeping all the pickleball pros rocking and ready to go. Physically, if there was any injuries, they were following her around. So she did an awesome job. And man, I've done cupping before, but I was unaware of dynamic cupping. You guys are going to want to stay tuned and listen to the whole episode because she's got some amazing stuff that she has done. So,
welcome, Dr. C.
Thank you, Andy. Happy to be here.
And so we want to know just a little bit about your background and the road that you came to find pickleball.
Oh, it's very interesting. I think I am a COVID pickleball baby, like most people. I practiced chiropractic for, 35 years. And we had lived in San Diego, then sold our practice and retired in 2006 and then moved up to Orange County. And then we decided we're going to go back into practice because you just can't stay away from helping people. It just doesn't last long. So we went back into practice. And then when COVID hit, we were already kind of semi-retired and I was doing some other kind of consulting work. And so we decided to just close the office, and we live at the beach and we couldn't even go to the beach like most people, but oddly and delightfully enough, you could go to the pickleball courts. And so my kids and I know, it was awesome.
Crazier things have happened, right?
Perfect storm, honestly. Well, not storm is not the right word, but a perfect synergy. And so turns out that there's a court right behind my house. So I started going there and, just loved it and did the same thing that most people do with pickleball is you find it and you're like, oh, this is really fun. oh, this kind of reminds me when I play tennis or racquetball or badminton. And then I'm going to go once a week. And then I'm going to go, I really like it. I'm going to go again. And I'm going to go again. And it's like this hockey stick of whoosh. And that's what happened with me. And I was, going and cruising. And, I had played tennis for about 5 years when I was young, 10 to 15. And my body remembered how to wail on a ball. So I'm thinking I'm all like sassy. They're certainly going to ask me to be a pro any day. And then I started, hurting myself. And I started, it was a groin, and then it was a low back. And then, I really blew out my knee. And so, over the last couple of years, it's been like 6 months worth of time trying to get my knee working. So I thought I really needed to handle this for myself because, my senior pro experience was certainly down the drain. That was never going to happen, but in my mind.
I think we both thought that we were going to be there too.
Totally. I can do this. And also, I'm married to an athlete. My husband was been in several Olympics. So both my kids rode D1. So I'm like, okay, I'm athletic, but now I'm going to be an athlete. Body said,
what did your kids play in sports at D1?
They both, my husband is 6'8" and I'm 5'9". And so I have giants. I am the smallest of the land of the giants. So my daughter's 6'2", my son's 6'7". So they both rode up at Berkeley and, got them into school, but rowing is very hard on the body. So we told them to stop. It was a bad idea.
Wow.
It worked out, but the plan worked. Let's put it that way. Without too much ancillary damage. And they really enjoyed it. But it's tough. It's tough on your body.
Yeah.
I bet it is.
Yeah.
I love what you said. So your husband's an athlete, your children are athletes, and now you're on the pickleball court and you're an athlete.
And you're the top athlete.
Yes. And I have to tell you that, us moms, as we're playing out there in the pickleball courts, my son is friends with a lady that we recently started playing with, now becoming a friend. Mm-hmm. And her son said to me, my mom says she's pretty good. Is she? And I said, she is. And Xander said, my son said, my mom says she's pretty good as well. We're athletes now.
We're such athletes. Yeah. Well, honestly, that is the problem that happens with pickleball is that we are athletic. We do things. We do yoga. I did some running. I live near the beach. I was jogging on lightly. Jog is really an ambitious term. I scampered a little bit faster than walking on the beach. And so we think we're athletic, but pickleball, the forces going through a body in pickleball are so different than most of us have ever experienced unless we were basketball players or we had been continuing to play tennis up until the moment that we switched into pickleball. And so that's what gets us in trouble.
Oh. And I feel like I should be able to play anything, at 300%, and like I did when I was 20.
Absolutely. Why not? What could go wrong?
Right. So I go out there and I too had a knee injury. So that's interesting. I'll have to hear more about your knee injury. But what we really want to find out is in Atlanta, and in general really, but in Atlanta, what was the most common injury that you saw there?
At the MLP?
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, with the
Dr. C.
To Dr. C from the MLP.
Drinking the Empress. That is delicious.
Delicious grapefruit.
Delicious. Yes. Yes, indeedy. Okay. So you take it away, Dr. C, and let us know. I'm going to just guess what you saw at MLP. You make a guess too. Is shoulder.
That's a good one.
I'm going to say more with the foot.
Oh, you little stinker. That's a good one. Because I think she said that one of her podcasts.
Oh, well, because I have foot things, so I always think.
See, I didn't even say knee.
Yeah. Well, you're both right. We see a variety of injuries, but when I calculate the number of treatments, and treatments is a little bit different than recurrence of injuries, because treatment, sometimes one single athlete will come in 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times because they've got a really acute thing going on. And it's a 4-day experience for some of them. And when we do the season end, it's a 5-day experience. So we saw mostly hip. Like, and by hip, I mean kind of like SI joint and also tight hip flexors, psoas, iliacus, like an iliopsoas kind of complex. So that's where we see the most of. And because I've been working with these athletes for a long time in the group, and just to point out, it's a team. I am really lucky to be part of MLP. It's honestly the best job in the world. And we do have a team with HSS. And so but I provide the chiropractic, so they're used to coming to me. So I do more than half of the adjustments, or treatments are getting adjusted. So it's kind of like a general tune-up for optimization and accelerated performance. And then from a treatment standpoint, it goes hips, shoulders, and knees.
Hips,
and shoulders, knees and toes,
knees and toes.
Now, tell me this. Now, I know that in your body, everything is connected. And so when we have something, let's say a knee, let's use that for an example. I know it's never usually your actual knee. It is some other source. And what do you find as, even for you, if you have knee pain or an injury, what is the true source? Where does that usually, what's the most frequent reason that you have knee pain?
Well, you got to think, were you going to say something, Annie?
No, I was going to go like this. I just want to make sure that she can be heard.
She's too sexy for this show.
There's 3 pretty ladies in this podcast today. Okay.
So yes, anytime you have a problem with a joint, you always want to look what we call upstream and downstream, because the joints, some are supposed to be a little bit more stable and some are supposed to be a little bit more mobile with a greater range of motion. So lots of times with knees, you're always going to want to look for ankle mobility and hip mobility. The ankle and the hip are much more mobile, greater range of motion and fluidity than a knee. Knee is kind of more like a very specific hinge joint. But, in pickleball, lots of times the so-called knee problem isn't really a knee, it's a lateral hamstring. And that's what happened with me and what happens with a lot of people, because there is this lateral movement that we don't actually do in most sports. And certainly, even if we played tennis, certainly not to the frequency and kind of ballistic nature that we stop-start sideways and back and forth in pickleball. So if our booties, and even though it's a hamstring issue, it's a hamstring pull that causes the lateral knee pain, it begins because our booty is kind of deactivated because we sit all day long. And that lateral booty, the gluteus is supposed to tighten up and help with that lateral stability along that iliotibial band, and make that strong, so that when you're standing here and you kind of go out to the right for a forehand, it's a quick like shunk. And that's how I hurt my knee, because it was getting tight and I was like, oh, one more game. Come on now.
I know. One more, throw yourself to the floor and get that one pickleball.
And it was one quick boom. And I just really tore my lateral hamstring, and the end of it attaches right to the outside of your knee, kind of at the top part of your calf. So it feels like it's a knee problem. But over time, if you don't fix it, it actually can become an internal derangement on the knee. So it can become a knee problem. Yeah.
That is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. During ladder league, sometimes you have a bye, so you cool down.
Yes. And
several months ago, I had a bye after playing many games, cooled down. I got back on the court for the last game.
Oh, yes.
And I stretched down like I normally do.
She gets very low.
And I hurt my knee.
Yeah.
And then I said to myself, somewhere I had heard about the booty. So what I did for the rest of the game was squeeze my butt.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of actually helped.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, my knee is perfectly fine. But I also use red light therapy on my knee. Yes.
Yeah. There's all kinds of beautiful and wonderful things that you can do to, help when you have injured yourself, to help them. Like red light is great, scrape and tape, doing cupping, all these different things can help. But what we want to think about is a knee, a joint, any joint is controlled by the muscles that cross over that joint. And so if you think of kind of like a maypole, And then the maypole, you've got all these ribbons coming down from it. And you could go like those ribbons are like the muscles. And so if you're not pulling equally on all 6 of those ranges of motion, forward flexion, side to side, and rotation, if you're not pulling equally, like each of the little, the little children with their strings are not pulling equally. If one of them is a bully, then that whole pole starts to deviate. And then that's where you start to have problems. So, you said that everything's connected, and it really is. It's almost doesn't happen where there is just a cartilage problem, like a meniscus problem, or there's just a pulled muscle, because the muscle is connected to a tendon, which is connected to a bone. It's innervated by a nerve, and it's all covered in fascia. So
I knew I said, Annie, you are going to love her. Annie loves everything that you're saying. And I did all the research. So she's just like,
It is great. I'm really fascinated by the scraping and taping.
I know, but that's in our.
So I can't wait for us to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, let's throw our outline to the wind. Let's go right into it, because I'm super curious too. So, Dr. C, could you just tell us about the scrape and tape?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do. And it's one of the things that gets people back out on the court quickly. So scraping is, I use a technique, which is, kind of the gold standard in scrapology. And scraping is really an ancient art, from gua sha, from Oriental medicine, where they typically use different kind of devices, sometimes spoons. The context and the intention of their scraping is a little bit different than the current modern day scraping, but the mechanics of it are very similar. You just are taking a tool. In my case, it's got a beveled edge, and you're just moving it across the plane of the body superficially at kind of a 45-degree angle. And what it's designed to do is several different things. We have this fascia that is in our body, and it connect. That's the piece that connects. One of the pieces that connects everything. If you think of like a single muscle fiber, I always like to think of it like a piece of dried spaghetti, and then you wrap that in cellophane. But then you take 10 of those, and then you wrap those together, and that's like a little mini bundle. And then you take 10 of those, and you wrap those bundle on bundle and wrap on wrap together. And then you take that and you put it in all these different directions, and then you wrap that. And that's what a muscle is like. So if you look at the key muscle in your quadriceps, the rectus femoris, it actually looks like a feather. So all the fibers are going in these different directions, and they're surrounded, and they stay that way because of their attachment with the fascia. But then you take that muscle, and then you wrap that in fascia, and that's like your thigh compartment. And in the meantime, you've got to have all the vessels and the lymphatics and the nerves moving through that and gliding. And so it's all designed to slide and glide. And sadly, as we get a little bit older, some of the fluid dynamics and the hyaluronic acid that is kind of our lubricant starts to not lubricate quite as much. So it's part of why we get stiff. So when you scrape, the goal is to help the superficial layers be able to slide and glide better, which allows the whole system to work better. And then also you have a lot of nociceptive nerves, which are kind of like pain nerves in those superficial layers. So it's kind of like, I talk about petting the part. You just pet the part. Okay. You just go over there and you just scrape it and you give it a little love. And you can kind of down-regulate some of the sensitivity that our bodies can upregulate when we've hurt something. It becomes hypersensitive. So the scraping helps to decrease that. And then it also helps with some of the lymphatic drainage. So it works in 3 different ways. So it's basically awesome.
Well, I'm super curious about the lymphatic drainage, because I know that is such a big component of our health, really. Yeah. Well, so our lymph system is kind of like the trash removal system in our body. So our heart pumps blood. Think of it like the nutrients going to the cells. And then the lymphatic system takes the extracellular fluid and it kind of sucks it up into these little vessels. And those little lymphatic vessels then are moved. There's no pump to the lymphatic system. So the only way that it moves is when we move. It's muscular contraction that allows it to actually move that fluid, the lymph fluid,
forward. And so that is what we need to do. And sometimes, you know, when you see somebody who's torn something and they swell up, that is extracellular fluid. And then that needs to be pulled out ultimately by the lymphatic system. So anything we can do to help that, that's why I like to use the compression boots. You know, we use Air Relax or Normatec, that to help, you know, like it's like wringing a towel. You just move all that stuff out.
Mm-hmm. We have those.
Kingsfield. We have Kingsfield compression boots.
But I was using them, I've been trying everything for my knees, and I just had a lot of pain when I used them. I only used them once. So I'm like, I can't do it. Is that so?
You can put them on too high. You know, there's no the lymphatic system is very superficial. So you don't really need to crank those babies down. You know, you do that when you want to drive blood in and out because the blood vessels are a little bit deeper, right? But the lymphatic system is superficial, so you don't need to have it on hard. And sometimes people make the mistake of like, if a little is good, then twice as much is better.
Oh, yeah.
Like pickleball.
We call that extra sauce.
And we just love extra.
Oh, we do.
As well you should.
I feel like we should cheer to extra.
We should.
I mean, come on.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so Dr. C,
ma'am,
with doing the lymphatic draining and doing the scraping, are you to do it every day, or should you do it before you play, after you play? What would you recommend on how, like Annie and I would put that into our pickleball routine?
Well, it depends on kind of what your intention is for it. Lots of times, you know, we want to be careful that we don't overstretch right before we play. So the concept of like this long static stretching before we play isn't what we want. What we want to do is to get blood into the area so that the body can warm itself up. And then also in getting the blood in the area, we're also turning on that connection between the brain and the part. So our neurological communication is better so that we can coordinate a little bit better. So one of the things that I do like to do, there are certain muscles that I really like to use this on before I go play. And one of them is a quadriceps muscle because it's one that gets very tight. And what I found on myself, if I don't do a static stretching, to completely contradict what I just said, if I don't do a static stretch, like really stretch it out before, I have a tendency to kind of pull it. And then by pull, I mean you just cause a little bit of micro tears. So what I do is I use the scraper on it. So I like to use rock sauce because it smells good and it's a little spicy, and then also it allows the glide of the tools. So I do that before I do the stretching because it takes the first line of resistance out when you do this, when you do the scraping. So you're getting that superficial layer to kind of like go, oh, okay, I will mellow myself out. Mm-hmm. And so then you can use it afterwards if you've hurt yourself. That's one of the other best ways to have it. You had talked about what do you need in your pickleball. In your pickleball bag, you know, as a first aid 911. So I like three things. I like to have a scraper, rock sauce, and tape. So if you feel at any point like, you know, you kind of pull something like you just did that when you played last time, Annie, you said you kind of went over and you felt something and then you use your booty to coordinate better. What you can do is take a break, you know, and we're fortunate in MLP, we get 15-minute medical timeout. So I do this all the time. You take a break and go, you know, if it's somewhere that's a little spicy, go into the bathroom and take that rock sauce and put it on there and just use your scraper. And basically it's you communicating with the brain saying, hello, I hear I've done something. And then it also kind of like helps the fascia to distribute the load properly, because otherwise when you have a weak spot, the load is preferentially going to keep going to that and like, you know, damage it a little bit more. So if you use a scraper, then that kind of spreads the load a little bit, spreads the love, and then the neurological system gets back on track and it doesn't oversensitize. And then you go and put the tape on it, and that works in three different ways too. Mm-hmm. Similarly to the scraping is that it works superficially as what we call a pain gate. So you put the tape on it, And that sensation of the stickiness kind of overrides the pain sensation, similar to when you bop your thumb with a hammer and then you squeeze it, and then that pressure overrides pain. So,
my gosh, you, my friend, are amazing.
That is interesting. I've always wondered about the tape.
Yeah. You know what? You was using the tape, and I was like, it's just BS. And
you could have that's not an uncommon thing to think. It's just not accurate.
Totally. And so I would go to my PT. They would put it on, and then when I didn't go to PT anymore, I was putting it on myself. And maybe that's where it kind of came to be, where it was like it probably wasn't put on correctly by myself.
Well, yeah, you can give yourself a little bit of grace on that, because it's almost like kind of like scraping. In some sense, you can't do it wrong, but you can do it more right. As long as you're not really just, in the scraping, just jamming on yourself, then you're probably not going to cause damage unless you're really going after it. And that's not the purpose of the scraping in general, unless you're trained to do that. But the taping is great because in addition to the pain gate and reducing the pain, it also helps move fluids through in that lymphatic system. But even more importantly, that all of that stickiness, the adherence and adhesive, it's sending messages to the brain going, hello, I'm here. Hello, look at me.
Oh.
And so the brain coordinates the part better.
That's fascinating.
You describe things really great.
You really do. I hope you don't mind if I segue into something else. Dry needling is something that I have been told to do. And what is your opinion on dry needling?
Well, I think that there are many roads to Rome, and there are so many amazing, really like extraordinary ways of helping the body to do its own healing. Because at the final analysis, it's the magic and brilliance of the innate intelligence in the body that does the healing. It's not me as Dr. C. It's not the scraping. It's not the taping. It's that innate intelligence in the body that is doing the job. And so needling is kind of like dry needling too, is based on the Oriental medicine kind of approach, in that not only are they looking at the meridian channels, but they're using it to specifically get the muscle to relax. So I think that, I haven't done it, but I don't discount the potential that it has.
Well, something that you have done that we couldn't wait, I've been chomping at the bit, is the dynamic cupping.
Yes.
So could you share a little bit about that? I saw the video on your Instagram. Everybody follow Dr. C on Instagram. Do a shout out for your name on Instagram.
Yes, I am Dr. C _ the pickleball doc, and definitely do follow me, because I'm going to start doing more and more tips and hacks so that we can all play pickleball till we're 90 safely. That's my goal anyway. That's what I want to do. You can all join me in that quest.
We are signing on right now.
Yeah. So the dynamic cupping, its actual name is myofascial decompression. And what distinguishes it from normal cupping, which also we kind of snagged from Oriental medicine, they typically put the cups on and then just leave it there. They're trying to increase the blood flow, and they have different intentions, like they're in the framework of how they're looking at health, and that elicits a certain outcome that they're looking for. With myofascial decompression, what we're looking for is to get a glide and slide between those layers. So when we put the cups on, and then when we create the vacuum, when we suck it up, we're pulling not only the skin and the superficial fossa, but we can actually pull the muscle up in there. So by doing that, we get to access layers in between muscles, the deeper fascia. And then when we make people go through ranges of motion, then we get to have one layer of a muscle slide and glide on the layer below it, which is incredibly powerful, because it's one of the key reasons that we have pain in any area, is that the fascia is not gliding and doing the thing that it's supposed to.
Fascinating. So, and explain to our listeners how you actually do that. I saw a video of you doing the dynamic cupping. I was like, oh my God, I need it.
Yes. Yeah, it is. Sometimes it's miraculous. I will just have to say it is a very powerful modality. to increase range of motion. And that's one of the things that gets people back out on the court, like an MLP, when they really, need to put the pedal to the metal. So what you do is, and everybody should have a set of cupping tools too. You put the cups on, and then you have a pump on it that you attach to it, and then that pump sucks the air out as a vacuum, and so then that sucks the skin and the fascia and the muscle as well. Depending upon how hard you pull is depending upon which layer of tissue that you're trying to get to. And then you have the patient go through an active range of motion. We like, if somebody's really hurt themselves, then I had one of the pros at the PPA in Takea really hurt their ankle. And so I didn't start by having them go through a range of motion. I started by just using it as kind of a decongesting, a little bit of a suck and a little move and a little inhale and a little move to try and decongest the area and turn the nervous system on. But so you typically start out kind of passively, have them go through a passive range of motion, then a non-weight bearing active range of motion, and then you kind of take them into more of a weight bearing, and then you go full Monty, and have them like DJ was on that on the Instagram, where I was having him actually look like he's hitting a forehand, because there's a tensegrity, which means an attachment of everything, an interconnection of everything in the fascia. So when you put your whole body in the position that is causing trouble, then you change the dynamics of the loads. And so that's the cupping is just awesome.
Wow. Okay. Now, could I use that? So my knee is actually from my, whatever the pelvic bone on each side, the two bones.
Yeah.
That's always out, and I always have to get that adjusted. Yep. So I feel like that is my source of my knee issue. Now, could I use cupping for that, or is that?
Absolutely, because your quads and hamstrings are attached to that ilium. They're attached to your pelvis. So if you've got issues in either one of those, and those little maypole children are not pulling equally, and that's very, very common. It's probably more often than not. Sure. You can work on your quads and your hamstrings to be able to get them to be balanced using the cups and going through, you could start just by doing, I'd start by scraping though, just kind of like feel what's happening in the tissue. And then you can put the cups on it as well. You can't overcup. I mean, the idea of cupping is not to just, create cupperonis all over your body. That's what we call it.
Right.
Yeah. Unless you want to be the center of attention, which why not?
I've seen so many people at pickleball, and I'm like, oh, you doing some cupping? Doing some cupping?
It is kind of the new cool thing, but
yeah.
Cool. Sometimes cool and trite and cliche are that way because they deserve it, because it's awesome and it wants to be repeated.
Right.
How fascinating.
I just love it.
I know. There's so many things that I would just love to dive into. I mean, I'm wondering
if you could come over.
No, we're coming to you. We're coming to you. We have a few people we need to visit out in California.
Everybody needs to visit California.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So as we are all thinking about the things that we can do to perhaps prevent injury, scraping sounds like that could help prevent as well as help if you've been injured. Are there any other key takeaways that those of us that are just fanatically involved with playing pickleball every second that we can, that we should be thinking about
to add to our routine?
Yes.
Is that what you?
Yes.
And also, you had mentioned for pre that we should not be doing so much static stretching.
Right.
I love static stretching. I am a static stretcher.
But we have heard of dynamic stretching, and we have been advised by some trainers that dynamic is better before playing or during a bye. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In a bye, it's also the time to do a little bit of static stretching because you just finished. And so, when you contract, it's not a bad thing to kind of elongate afterwards. But then right before you want to do the dynamic, the purpose of the dynamic is really to drive blood into the area so that the body is kind of got the nutrients that it needs. It's got the electrolytes, it's got everything that it needs in order to perform. And so that's what's really important, as well as the kind of neurological connection. Lots of times people trip and fall, not because they were, just being a dork or it was like a crazy move, but because their brain and their feet were not communicating very well. So that's also the part of the dynamic warm up. I like to call it crisscross applesauce, where you're kind of like crossing over, going sideways, both directions, and then shuffle both directions, and then do a T where you kind of do a couple steps forward, then out, and then forward and back. Just to kind of get your brain going, oh, that's right. I gotta step it up. I gotta move. I gotta be able to coordinate all these parts really fast, because when a ball comes at you, your movement is much faster than your ability to consciously go, oh, maybe that's a little too much. You're gone.
That's right. And we have been known to psych a couple teams out with our dynamic stretching.
We have.
I love that.
It's our secret weapon.
Shoot. It's like the pickleball haka.
Oh my God, you're so great. Okay, so we have a couple more questions. And we always ask one, did you ask all your questions that you wanted to ask about before, after, and all that? I wanted to make sure that we
yes, I mean, we could really go on and on. We could have multiple series of recordings with you to enlighten all of us who are curious and would like to take good care of our bodies.
And our listeners are really into that, but I think they'll get a ton out of that. And time has flown by.
Yes. And we do have a few questions that we'd like to ask that are fun questions. And before we do that, I know that you have a website as well as Instagram. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. The website is the pickleballdoc.net. And, don't judge me.
I was out there and I thought it looked pretty nice, actually.
And
it looks nice. I just like all the little fancy little shenanigans for download this that aren't 100% effective. So I would recommend, though, that people download the Pickleballer's Guide to Recovery, how to play, how to survive playing one more game 5 more times.
That's such a great headline. And I did see that and I did click on it and it did work.
It worked.
Yes, it did.
Yes. I'm so excited.
Yes. So thank you for that wonderful resource. We know our listeners will love that.
Yeah. It's very
valuable. Put a
valuable.
link to that on our website, on our podcast page.
Podcast notes. You better believe it. Okay.
Okay. So now, question to you, Dr. C.
Yes.
Is if you could play pickleball socially in doubles with anybody, who would you choose to play with and why?
You guys don't even know what spot you're putting me in on that question. Like, I work with all these people, and this is like ridiculous, but I kind of think of them as my babies because they're all around my kids' age.
Oh.
And so it's like, which child do you like best?
Well, and now we've had somebody pick a president. We've had somebody pick. There've been like just so many unique ideas. So it doesn't even have to be.
Oh, okay. Then
Player.
Okay, then I'm going with Brene Brown.
Wait, who's Renee?
And she also happens to be an owner of MLP, so she should say yes.
So
Renee,
she's
I'm with you. And like get me through my guilt when I get ahead of everybody and I want to like make everybody feel happy and try and help me when I start to go, oh, I shouldn't be out here. These guys are much better. Or when somebody else is worse than me and I don't want to make them feel like I have a whole list of neuroses that flare up when I'm playing pickleball. So if Brene was there and she could walk me through that, that'd be awesome.
That'd be awesome. Well, all right. Check.
It's going to happen.
I love it. Okay, so
Annie has some quick little questions. They're just silly, funny, but we always like to know what our guests think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always love this one. Brunch or happy hour?
Brunch.
We will meet you in Newport Beach. Let's do it. We'll do it. Okay, Starbucks or Chipotle?
Nectar green juice.
Good answer. Oh, I love it. Well, those are fast little quick questions to get to know you a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
And we thank you so very much for being our guest. And I cannot wait for everyone to benefit from your resource. It's really very, very helpful. Thank you so much.
And we will stop in at our next MLP visit.
Yes,
Say
we're
hello.
in Dallas. We're in Dallas coming up right away. A few weeks.
I've got my cowboy boots ready.
It's gonna be fun. Love to see you there. Thank you both very much. You're beautiful. You're wonderful at what you do. It has just been a pleasure and a joy.
Oh, thank you
thank
so
you.
much. And thank you very much for all that you do for
Yes.
this fabulous sport of pickleball, not to mention caring for people and sharing your knowledge and helping us all take better care of our bodies.
And we should probably finish this off with saying, Dr. C, who is your favorite child on the court? I'm kidding. Rebecca, I'm joking. I had to add a little spice in there.
Good try. Good try.
Good try.
Thank you again for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks. It was a lot of fun.
Oh,
Good.
thank
And we
you
will
so
see
much.
you on the court.
We will see you on
Absolutely.
the court.
Game on.
Game on.
Today's podcast was sponsored by Harbor Wine and Spirits and Empress 1908 Indigo Gin. And a very special thank you to Ron, our fabulous Pickleball CHIX mixologist. We love the exotic coloring and healthy benefits of this drink. Now let's watch Ron mix
Hello,
this baby
Pickleball
up.
CHIX. I am Ron, your mixologist from Harbor Wine and Spirits in Mound, Minnesota. And today we are going to be making a Pickleball Empress cocktail with Empress 1908 gin. And the fun and important thing about this, it is made with butterfly pea flower, which gives it this beautiful indigo color. But when you add acidic products, it will change the color of the gin. So the butterfly pea flower has huge health benefits and antioxidants and all that sort of thing. So healthy drinking as we all like. So we're going to start with a little rimming of the glass. We're going to use fresh grapefruit slice for that. Start with 2 ounces of your Empress 1908. This is a 2-ounce cup, so it's very convenient. Put that in. Beautiful blue color. Pretty that way. So if you mix this with non-acidic products, it will stay that color. You can have a lovely blue cocktail. Then we are going to put some Fever Tree grapefruit soda in there. And you want to add that carefully and kind of notice as we're adding it, that coming up with a little bit of change. Second one going pink on us.
I want you on my rap.
The fun and amazing part.
You make you ring. I want you to unwrap.
And to give it a little pizzazz and sweet juiciness, organic mango juice, also healthy for you. 1 ounce. That kind of on the side so we get a little sunset type, or sunrise, I guess, action. Depending on which way you're looking, east or west. And just 1 ounce of the organic mango. And then our straws are right down here. Throw a straw in there. Fresh grapefruit garnish. And Pickleball CHIX, this cocktail is for you. Enjoy.
Thanks so much for joining the CHIX and special guest, Dr. C, the Pickleball Doc, Dr. Cynthia Boccara. Be sure to sign up for a chance to win a special scraping tool from Dr. C. See the link in our bio to enter. Follow Dr. C on social at Dr. C_the Pickleball Doc, and Annie and Rebecca, the CHIX at Pickleball CHIX with an X. We appreciate your support. If you haven't already rated our podcast on Apple, please do so. It really helps the show. And thanks for sharing us with your friends. We love pickleball and will continue to bring you content that will help you live your best life on and off the court. Until next time, cheers